Hello, this is Nadine Whitfield, and you are watching the video course Hands-on AWS Security Automation with Python. This course is going to be focused on how to create automation solutions using the Python programming language and AWS services. In this video, we're going to be looking through the roadmap for the course, and then we're going to drill into each section of the course to get a better idea of what the learning goals are and how to get set up for success. So let's get started. Now, the course contains 7 modules. The first one is going to be an introduction to AWS security. This is going to cover foundational security concepts and services that are available to do security tasks and security work in AWS on the platform. The second section is going to be focused on how to set up your local machine to use Python and the Bodo 3 library. That's the Python-based SDK for AWS, and also how to configure the AWS CLI on your machine as well as your AWS credentials. The third section is going to be sections 3 through 7. So the rest of the course is going to be focused on the well-architected framework, and we're going to use that as a method of organizing our content. Each section is going to be introducing a new pillar. There are 6 pillars in all, and each pillar that is in the framework, I will be making comparisons between that pillar and the security pillar, because since we are security people, that is like our first concern, and then everything else kind of relates to that. So we're going to find ways to relate each of the well-architected pillars to the security pillar. It's a pretty unique perspective. I have not seen anyone else do it this way, but we are doing it in this course. Section 3 is going to be focused on the security pillar and IAM security in AWS. The fourth section is going to be the reliability pillar and some of the kinds of tasks that you can automate under that pillar, best practices. Each pillar has a set of best practices that are recommended by AWS. The fifth section is going to be focused on the performance efficiency and also the sustainability pillars. The sustainability pillar is the newest out of the 6, and they actually do share a lot of common characteristics. So we will be looking at them together and also comparing them with the security pillar. The 6th section is on cost optimization, because you always need to be aware of your cloud costs. The final section is going to be focused on operational excellence and also next steps that will happen with this course. The end of this course is going to have a final exam that you can take to earn a certificate of achievement, and we'll also do some discussion on further study. If you want to go deeper into the Python language, or if you want to go deeper into AWS itself and perhaps even earn a certification, we will discuss some of those options. So that is the overview. That's like the 10,000-foot overview of the course. Each of these sections lasts anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour and a half of content. So you can either buzz through the entire course in one day or a couple of days. I would recommend a couple of days at least, so you can try out the hands-on exercises and get your machine set up. Because that is one of the benefits of taking this course. By the time you get done, you will have a fully functional development setup on your laptop, so you can work with Python code, and you will also know enough of the language to be able to look at other people's Python code and figure out what's happening. So now, the details of each section. The first section, Module 1, our goals are to gain a high-level view of the entire course. We'll be reviewing the roadmap again. We're also going to look at the goals of each course module, and we're going to identify supplemental learning resources and books that you can use. We're going to explore the documentation that's provided by AWS as well as python.org, which is the sponsoring organization for the Python language. We're going to help you set up an AWS account where you are the administrator. That's a very important feature to have, especially if you're going to write automation scripts, because they will often be accessing areas that normal AWS users do not have access to. So you will need to have those elevated permissions to get all of that set up. And then lastly, we're going to see how to configure your AWS account for optimal cost control and security. This is known as the Day 1 Security Checklist. Section 2, Module 2. Our goals are to understand the basic principles of automation and identify processes that could benefit the most from automation. So there's going to be a bit of analysis of potential use cases for automation projects. We're going to explore the free features and the services that support automation. I realize many of you may be working with an enterprise account that has like paid services already included. If you do, that's more power to you. This course is kind of geared to be, it's more towards the free tier side, but we will look into paid services as well because there are lots of wonderful services available that are paid subscriptions from AWS, but they will make your job as a security practitioner much easier and make the automation easier as well. And lastly, we want to understand the available ecosystem for AWS and Python. So, all of our sections after Section 2 are going to be focused on the AWS well-architected framework. And these pillars, we're going to be going through them in kind of a different order. The first pillar will be the security pillar in Section 3. The security pillar is where we're going to start because it's the widest. We'll be learning about IAM best practices, things that we can automate in IAM, which stands for Identity Access Management. We're going to look at some potential automation patterns that we can use with IAM and look through some tools, some working tools that can help us manage security policies and users and roles in the IAM service. And then we'll also do an introduction to the well-architected framework, which is a well-documented concept by AWS. It has been adapted by many other companies. Like I think Azure has their own version of this same framework and Salesforce has their own version. The concepts that are covered by this framework are actually universal, and they could work for any kind of cloud-based service. But AWS was one of the very first pioneers to actually articulate these things and write about them and publish white papers on those topics. Then we'll be looking into the well-architected security pillar in detail and see what areas of best practice it contains and come up with some automation ideas to support those best practices. Section 4 is going to be focused on the well-architected reliability pillar, but we will also be comparing the reliability pillar to the security pillar to find overlapping areas of best practices. We're going to review the workflow that we would use to design an automated solution. This would include using both Python code as well as AWS services. Next, we're going to learn how to select a high-impact automation idea. What kinds of things do we need to evaluate? What kinds of things do we need to consider? And how do we pick the best thing to automate if we have a list of possible candidates? Section 5, Module 5. This is going to be focused on the sustainability and performance efficiency pillars. So this section is actually addressing two different pillars. We'll be comparing those two pillars with the security pillar to find shared areas of concern and see what kinds of best practices we can automate. And then we're going to map those automation scenarios to AWS services and Python and Boto 3 resources. So we'll get an idea of what we would need to actually implement a solution. We'll also look at a couple of working solutions in this section to see tools that we can use to get started with automating sustainability and performance efficiency. And then we're also going to do a deep dive into Boto 3 and learn the core concepts behind the modules and libraries and learn how to leverage the AWS documentation, because the documentation is very good in AWS and it's a good resource to use whenever you start writing code. You always want to consult the documentation first. Section 6. This is going to be focused on the cost optimization pillar. We're going to find the best practices that are associated with supporting this pillar, and then we're going to compare it to the security pillar and find areas of shared concern. Then we'll explore solutions that can assist with collection and analysis of the usage data. The cost optimization pillar is a little different because it uses a different tool set. It uses a different service than most of the other pillars. Most of the other pillars rely on data that you collect from CloudWatch and from CloudTrail, but the cost optimization pillar has its own service and a dashboard. So it's going to be a slightly different tool set, a slightly different workflow to get the data that you need to create an automation. But our end goal is to create some starter scripts that we can use to start working from our local machine and to work with these services. Last section, Section 7, Module 7, we're going to be looking at the operational efficiency pillar, which did not make it onto the slide, but I will add that before the end of the day. But it does show up in the roadmap. This is the operational excellence pillar, and it's actually the one out of the framework, out of all the 6 pillars of the framework, it's the one that has the most best practices. So we're going to look at how those practices can relate to security and find areas of shared concern and come up with some ideas for automation projects. And then once we've addressed that pillar, we'll look at the final exam. We're going to see how to review for it. We're going to identify some study resources, and then we'll give some coverage to understanding next steps and understanding the options for continuing education. So, just to recap, this is our course roadmap. We have our first 2 modules that are focused on getting introduced to the landscape of AWS as a platform, setting up the local machine, and then the 6 pillars of the well-architected framework, which include security, reliability, performance efficiency and sustainability, cost optimization, and operational excellence. So it's quite a bit to get started on, but it's going to be fun. Thank you for coming along on this journey. Thank you very much for watching this first video. The next video is going to be about setting up an AWS account with the correct permissions and also the day 1 security checklist. Thank you very much.